Righty, so about a week ago I did a video with Dread going over explosive trap acid flask build. Um, so here's my full completion of that build for 1.0. Of course there be a lot more that can be done for this build, but ultimately it's kind of just where I've kind of decided to end it for now. So overall it hits all the checkpoints. It's clears T4 Jora about 15 seconds. I'm at 600 corruption. Definitely can push higher than that. It's definitely a great mono farmer for a merchant guild. It's fast, kills things very quickly, very efficiently. In terms of the mechanics, it is very similar to very much a one button build. There definitely are some other buttons you press, but most of the damage is coming from the explosive trap, trebuchet interaction into acid flask, which is pretty common about now. Most people do know about that. The second part is decoy, giving an 80% multiplier, and then our Falcon strikes, which is going to give that 60% culling effect. So a rotation, skill rotation might look something like this on a red bar to me: is throwing decoy, uh, using your explosive traps as much as possible to build up your smoke shrouds. You can use your decoy again to proc 80%, and then use your culling strike to finish off an elite enemy. But most of the mono gameplay is going to just be running around throwing these explosive traps, procking your acid flasks as well, and everything really shreds armor. So again, you can see at the top of the train dummy, you shred armor very quickly, build up stacks, build up damage very quickly. So one of the main issues or things to solve for this build is how to get out as much damage without overcapping yourself on mana. So the first very large thing to overcome is your mana rings. So the biggest part is getting minus throwing attack mana cost. I do have some tier 7 ones, but for early game, whether that's just going through the campaign, going through early monos, even empowered monos, you could do the empowered monos with just the tier 5. I know if you're not playing Merchant's Guild, it could be tough just getting tier 6, tier 7 of these rings, but you can really get to just through the basic and even through 100 corruption with just tier 5s. The thing that I do note with people is if you are going to use the explosive trap, you want to use these static mines, trappas, and cold snap mines to give yourself extra mines. You don't actually care about the damage of the mine. It's really just to proc. The more mines you throw, the more procs you can throw for acid flask. These two over here are the ones that cause the most issues for most people, as they cost plus 16 mana, and then of course the automated bombardment is a plus 11 mana. You really want to not add these until you can have the mana sustain to basically be able to throw those out without even worrying about your mana cost. So the best thing I always say is just get these two first, and then tack on some extra additional traps as you go, one at a time. Definitely get automated bombardment first, and then add one clustered explosives and a second one. A good rule of thumb really is to have double the mana regeneration for the cost of your explosive trap. So you can see mine shows 15, but when I use the potion, and I also have some other mana regen mechanics, and that I'll explain in right here with the Jewelry Star Dial, so I can reduce the mana cost of explosive trap even farther, down to 7. So the potion down to 22, I'm like triple the cost, which allows me to pretty much 100% sustain the mana cost for all the traps. So really that's the main kind of skill rotation, early mechanics, kind of early leveling. You can level with Firestarter's Torch, which I showed here. Firestarter's Torch is a great leveling. It gives you that more damage, more fire damage, and you're doing fire damage with explosive traps and acid flask. Shift gives you mana as well in the shift mana node. Always great to get your mana back that way. They added this new affix for mana and increased mana regen. I would definitely recommend getting those on both of your weapons. So I have a sealed affix for this one. It's only tier 3 even, and then this one is only a tier 5. So you can get tier 6, tier 7. I have some daggers with that, but overall I'm able to sustain that. I don't need as the tier 6 or 7. I can go for something like crit multi in this build. So the grabbing flat mana on your chest piece, your helmet while you're leveling is definitely going to be the best best way to sustain just traps and acid flasks. Yeah, so some neat little tricks with this build in particular is this Eliko's Abandon. Throwing an acid flask consumes potions, and you don't even care about the more damage, and the that doesn't actually proc unless you self-cast acid flask. But the one part that is interesting is that the Parrotkin, this whole nodes over here, the acid flask that gets thrown from the Falcon actually counts, as you. So the acid flask that it chucks basically procs this, which procs this new belts affix that they added in back with the exiled mages, and it's the you gain 39 mana gained on potion use, and then the increased mana regen for 4 seconds. So it's a 4-second increase in mana regen, and it's a 6-second cooldown baseline in here. So you can reduce that and give yourself more charges, and even self-casting acid flask is going to give you a 100% chance to give the charge back. So while you're leveling, a good use of that node is actually, I'll show you here. If you just get rid of as much mana as possible and you have a potion, I have 3 potions here. If I throw a potion, it's going to give me mana, and my bird, well, in that case didn't throw it, but the bird can, because the trick can proc throwing as well and give you double. So not only are you proccing, this mana, increased mana gain, you're getting the mana gain twice, the mana regen only once, but when you need the additional mana, early on while you're leveling, it's definitely a lifesaver. One thing to note, because we're throwing out potions, we're always low on potions. It's an interesting mechanic in the game that the lower your potion total is, the actually more potions that drop. I've seen some people ask about how there's so many more potions on the ground, and in my gameplay I do have increased potion find on some of this stuff, but really that stuff is kind of minuscule in the scheme of things. The big thing is the less potions you have, the more potions that drop from killing enemies. So you want to just keep going through monos, keep killing enemies, and the potions will basically drop for you. You don't have to worry about being out of potions too much. It does come up with some bosses, but no boss has really been an issue in terms of killing it quick enough where you basically have to worry about your potions. So the last part is Sapping Strike, which is actually in the passive skill tree here. You get mana gain for using a 0 cost skill. So this won't actually work for you until you get your acid flask down to 0 mana cost, and to do that you just need 2 tier 5 rings to basically get that down, along with the mana sustain that you have to get anyways in the acid flask tree. So at that point you might actually need a tier 6 now that I think about it, but once that's down to 0, that basically will get the total amount for Sapping Strikes, which again will give you more mana while you're leveling in the monos. That's more monos than actual the campaign. So what weapons you're looking for? You want any type of dagger that gives plus 4% critical strike chance up as the implicit. That matters the most. With the 4 and 5 baseline, we have 13% crit chance, as well as just any increases. And then the big part that it doesn't get recorded in your tracker sheet, even though it shows 47%, you actually have 200% increased critical strike chance, and 200% crit multiplier. So really, you're getting a massive amounts of increased crit chance and multiplier just based from this node. Pretty sure this is incorrect. One of these nodes should be here on the throwing fire damage. I must have taken off when I took off the dagger. So, but that's supposed to be 4 out of 4. So that's the best way to get the most potential damage out of your weapons. In terms of what you're looking for affixes, you want any type of mana and mana regen. That could be, like I said, tier 6, tier 7 to start, and then you can kind of swap it to crit multi once you have enough mana regen. But mana regen and crit multi are the two you're looking for your prefixes, and then fire pen and armor shred would be ideal as suffixes. Again, the fire pen is much more necessary than the armor shred. You can really get away with anything else. Even I have a chance to chill here on this one. You have so much armor shred anyways, it doesn't matter, but you could basically leave that fourth slot open for whatever you want if you want frailty or some other type of suffix to help your build. Other uniques that people have asked me about really being Drought Release and even the new Chill Catalyst. The Chill Catalyst does not work in this build. We're really scales off of either cold damage or poison. We're really going for the actual hit damage itself, and we scale with fire, so you really can't use that here. Drought's Release, on the other hand, is definitely an option. You can use it. I have one here. I tried crit multi with mana regen and increased stun chance. The largest factor that you miss out is that implicit 4% crit strike chance. So you do get a massive 60% critical strike multiplier, but unless you make up for the flat crit strike chance or just a large amount of increased critical strike chance, you actually lose out more damage that way than even using this. So if you're going to use Drought's Release, you might want to use something like Peak of the Mountain, which you also have to deal with. You cannot leech from crits, so again, that's other issues, but if you can find enough critical strike chance, then Drought's Release is probably worth it. So it's definitely fun. The healing basically on potion use is great, especially if you're doing some type of ward on top. It wouldn't be great for low life build, but ward on top with something not here. But overall, I just felt it actually wasn't as good. But if you want to use it, go for it. It's definitely a lot of fun. It's easy to get LP on, so early on it's probably great. But once you start pushing higher monos, higher corruption, it just seems to be better to stick to a 4% implicit. Let's see. Some of the other ones, Throne of Ambition, you can use. I wanted more life, so I just took it off. I didn't really need it to kill any of the bosses, but definitely would use it if you have the space. If you want to, just go for it. It's definitely worth it. It's definitely good. The Jungle Queen, super fun. I'll give you from Merchant Guild experience. I don't know what it's like. Circle of Fortune. They're really expensive. Anything over 1 legendary potential is just not worth the investment. You're really not. The only thing you're getting out of it is the crazy amount of potion slots and some dexterity. Your dodge rating is irrelevant since you're already capped dodge rating from smoke traps anyways. So, is it fun? Yes. Is it worth it? Probably not, in terms of what you need for the builds. Another unique that you can do, very hard to get any legendary potential at all on this thing. I've only found one. This one with 1 legendary potential. The fire critical strike chance. So you could, swap out one of those daggers maybe for a shield, or like I said, for your Drought's Release and get Logi's Hunger on for that massive amount of leech, massive amount of critical strike chance flat. But getting a good roll, I mean, you could, compared to the amulet I'm wearing right now, you'd have to be lucky enough to find a 1 legendary potential or 2, and then get the tier 7 throwing damage to also get on this. It's just, again, if I were to continue going, I might try for that, but it's just not worth the time investment. I've been farming specifically that timeline, and I've never seen anything. I've only seen 1 legendary potential drop on it. Some other fun ones, Grimoire You can take a lot less damage on potion use, so pretty much have always up void, necrotic, or poison damage taken. Again, it's probably better in the early, easy to get legendary potential on it, along with Pillager's Gold. You can probably get this for like 10,000 gold in Merchant's Guild with 4 LP. Really good leveling. The daggers are just atrocious, but you get the damage leech as health on the implicit, so you can basically stack whatever you want on top of this. I would recommend while you're leveling just snag one for 4 LP for pretty cheap, and even Keltham Blasting Agent, which is what I use in this build. I got mine 4 LP for like 10 or 20,000 like a week ago. So again, it's basically just free stats if you can get 3 or 4 LP and get it to roll properly. I'm sure there's other uniques out there, but those are the ones that seem relevant to the build that I haven't used. In terms of the ones that I do think are worth. Obviously, Elico's Abandoned is worth it for the interaction. You also get all res. You get +2 to throwing attacks, so you can stack +2 throwing attacks plus the Acid Flask plus Explosive Trap to get a lot more points. So movement speed, again, nothing on here is gonna break the bank. You can easily put some life on your chest piece instead, and just ignore the bird throwing the Acid Flask for you. Again, it's just a fun interaction. This is the best chest piece I have, so I'm just using it right now. The Chains of Ularos is not necessary. You can get away with just like a standard belt like this I have down here with mana and health. Cleanse is pretty much mandatory, as well as the mana gained on potion use. So those work basically all the way up through 300-400 corruption. Once you start getting to 600, some more defensive mechanics are necessary. So I use this basically just generate ward instead of health. I don't need any health. I definitely have enough from leeching. So always having like 500-600 ward on top is definitely helpful for stopping one shot, stopping getting stunned, stopping damage. So, and it's per potion, so you can basically, I only have 2 left here, but you can like spam it and get like 1200. If you run into a lot of you find a lot of potions on the ground, you can just spam that and get a lot of ward up front if you know you're going into a tough fight or an undodgeable ability. Laraka's Claws, top tier for the build. Just get flat throwing crit multi. If you can get 2 or 3 LP, 2 is the minimum just to get throwing attack speed and throwing damage on it. So they're expensive. I bought a bunch and got it on the first roll, so lucky me. But I wasted a lot of extra gold, basically getting extra Larakas. And then lastly, the Jewel of Stardial. I mentioned earlier, if you have a slot open or you don't need like resistances, crit avoidance, mana regen, this is the last thing I would add to the build. And only because anytime you basically use your shift here, you're going to reduce your throwing attack mana cost by an additional 5 and get plus 25 throwing. Just a quick note here, as I was going back through, I noticed that something along with the Jelkor's Blueprint and Subtle Sabotage, these 2 mana nodes are interfering with this Jewel of Stardial's tripling reduction. It doesn't seem to actually be tripling. Kind of weird. I have 12 right here. I use the dash and it goes down to 7, so it's only really doubling that. So I think it might be something to do with these 2 nodes, because when these are not allocated, it definitely triples as appropriate. So it could be something maybe I'm misunderstanding in terms of how the mana efficiency works, or maybe it's some type of weird coding. But if you want to still, I think this is still one of the best items for just mana reduction overall as you're going through. If you want to use this while you're leveling at the end of the campaign in early monos, and I think it's a great still opportunity while you're figuring out your mana costs, because even if you don't take these nodes here, right, the clustered explosives, it's going to significantly reduce the overall cost, and you'll still get it down to 0. But once you start getting all these nodes together, it's doing some weird mess of a calculation, and I'm not sure if that's a, like I said, intended or not, but yeah, just want to leave that quick note there. These are, they drop every time you basically kill Jorah. They're like 0 gold on the market, so that's not a problem. You just gotta find some tier 7s. Just buy a tier 7 with nothing else. Who cares about any other stat, and just keep spamming it until you get it to work. You know, interestingly, a pretty fun mechanic with these is if you have 2 of these and you take off these 2 nodes, the clustered explosives, so you just have like the baseline 3 traps, you actually can set your explosive trap down to 0 mana, which then would proc your sapping strikes, so you'd never have mana issues. You can actually just get rid of every other mana regen that you want. You'll have lower damage, and if you're okay with that, just running monos instead of bosses, you can get rid of every single mana node and just run those 2 rings, because you would basically just spam until you get low, shift, and then keep spamming, and your entire health mana bar would basically fill up instantly. So that's a little fun mechanic. It's a little bit of an investment, but it's pretty neat that that's even possible to get explosive trap down to 0. Some other build options that some people have asked about, and I've tested, is the Gelcor's blasting knife build. So you have to be a marksman. I leveled up a marksman just to test it with this build, and it does triple the amount of damage. You can get two Gelcors already have the crit strike chance implicit, so you don't even need to. You just basically slam anything onto those, more crit multi, and then you just throw explosive traps. It procs detonating arrow. They proc acid flask. It's crazy amount of damage, but it's awkward to build. Just if you're going like this build with the Gelcors, it's awkward to build because you have marksman as your main tree, so you miss out on a lot of Falcon passives, and obviously you can't use the Blade Dancer ones as well. So it's definitely more damage than this build, as like a total package, but it's more awkward to build, and I don't see that Gelcor's interaction surviving into the next cycle, but we'll see. In terms of the defensive mechanics, this build, I'm completely resistance cap, crit avoidance, 50% endurance. The big thing is it looks like armor and dodge, but like I mentioned earlier, the smoke trap passive here gives you dust shroud, and take that one, just gives you more damage per dust shroud, but the giving dust shroud is going to just make your dodge, and you can see glancing blows 0. You just detonate them, glancing blows over 100 already, and then you basically hit the soft cap dodge. You're not going to get, can't get any more than that. So I'm at like 150. You can see stacks there of dust shroud. It's just, that's your entire like, you don't need to spec any nodes in here for dust shroud, anything for dodge. You can really focus on your passive tree more on offensive capabilities than anything. So that's really the best way. Everything else is just from blessings as well. So build guide here for everything that I'm using currently in the build, as well as like the passive skill trees, some things to note. Like I said, I'll change this here. The Falcon one with the kill threshold, nothing else here is interesting. Same with shift. Again, you can proc your acid flasks, but that's like no damage. This one is great once you get to 600 plus corruption, just as a way to spam. If you freak out and you use shift, and then it'll use the potion for you. And then this is pretty much the best you can do on explosive trap. Adaptive fuse and Tinker's design are not necessary to begin. The higher you go in monos, the triggering from farther away is really important for things that are rushing you. There's a movement speed node that enemies will get on the monolith, which is perfect for this as well as the adaptive fuse, because if their movement speed is fast, which every enemy is in that case, it's going to trigger automatically. This it's probably the most underestimated node here on the tree. It gives you more damage, but it's really just to make sure you trigger those explosive traps instantly, because there's a small delay from the explosive trap proccing to then the acid flask going out as well. So the difference of life or death really in the higher monos comes down to that. And then the last one here, the decoy, is just pretty standard. 2 additional decoys with this crit multiplier per dodge chance. Like I said, once you start spamming your explosive traps, you'll get up to the like 85% dodge chance, which is just an 85% more multiplier, crit multiplier. So you can see when you go to bosses, like I said, you spam it and you throw your decoy out, and the decoy hits really hard. Like when you throw it, so like 840, like 3,000, like it's hitting for close to 1,000,000 by itself, and it's on a short cooldown just from the Kelthon blasting agent. So overall, that's the build. I went through and made a loot filter for this as well, so I'll post that. And it's basically an entire leveling loot filter from start to the end. With some of these nodes, I have them like auto hiding based on the level. So as you level up, some of these lesser affixes are going to just start dropping off until you're basically only seeing top like tier 6, tier 7 affixes that you desire, as well as the same with idols. These idols I left on just because of Circle of Fortune. Idols are really hard, so if you're playing Circle of Fortune, these are going to just still be on there. But feel free to play with the loot filter you want. You can turn set items on or off. I have them just set off because they're not worth even looking at right now. So, but yeah, that's the overview of the build. At this time, I have some gameplay as well, and thanks for checking it out. See you.